So it can be really, really tricky, and I think maybe all of us can relate to that when we say, I'm a Christian, what does that really even mean? And what does it mean to other people? And again, we can't change what that means to us just because we need to be true to what God is saying to us, right? But yet at the same time, to be able to relate to people and to show that love and mercy. So it can be really tricky. So these people had a little bit easier time in some ways because they knew the rabbis. They knew the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They kind of knew what they were all about. But this Jesus was really different. And they just couldn't quite put their finger on it because he was kind of like turning everything upside down. And I don't know, is that a blasphemy? Well, yeah, if it truly is against what God is saying to us, but what if it's not? What if it's a brand new way of looking at things? And we're taking the noise of other people, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and going, that just doesn't sound like the loving God I know. So maybe we need to check out this Jesus, because he talks to everybody, and he heals people, and he doesn't judge them. He is there with them, and he forgives them, and then new life comes from that. So you can see how these people, again, had it a little easier maybe than our modern times, but yet it also was completely new. Who is this Jesus guy? And so they go out and they follow him. They go out in the middle of nowhere, and they follow him. And Jesus could easily say, I don't have time for you. I'm busy. I'm grieving. I'm tired. But he doesn't. He has pity on them. He has pity on them. And he helps them. Now, are they his actual neighbors? Probably not, right? Jesus was pretty itinerant here and there. Presumably he had a home growing up, obviously. Presumably he had a place that he stayed. But that wasn't an issue for him, right? He doesn't ever preach really about that. Make sure you have a nice home. Make sure that you have plenty of food for yourself. Make sure you know. No, it was care for other people. Feed feed the hungry. Help the imprisoned. Help the widow. So he lived that ministry for us to see. And so I think we would probably all agree that we all are neighbors, right? That would be Jesus' answer. And obviously, even like in our book club, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? That we think about that. But if we really think about it, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to really think about that so that means if I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, that means fill in the blank. Who's the first person you think of when you go, ooh, really, God? I'm supposed to love these people? And maybe you need many blanks to put in all those groups of people that you have a hard time loving. So it can be tough. So what I'd like to do today is just really quickly go through two sections, two ways of looking at this. And so the first one is literally your neighbor. So Mark, here we are with my slide here, finally. It is National Good Neighbor Day. I told you I was going to talk about that. It is a real thing. So I know for many of us we say, it's National Pasta Day, right? And I used to, when the kids were little, I really did used to Google those fun holidays, and we used to try to do some of those, and it was really fun. But this is an actual official holiday. Okay, 1978, President Jimmy Carter issued a proclamation supporting the idea of National Good Neighbor Day. The U.S. Senate later passed a resolution in 2008 acknowledging the importance of the holiday for reinforcing community strength and national unity. And this came back actually even earlier than 78. In the 1970s, it was attributed to a woman named Becky Matson to promote positive neighborly interactions. But it was actually a resolution in the Senate in 2008. So National Good Neighbor Day. Laura very kindly posted some things on Facebook. Maybe we have some extra people watching today. But we talked about that, and I'm going to actually go talking about that too into October. But what are some real ways that we can show our real neighbors, the people next door to us or our neighborhood, what are some ways that we can show that love? Well, one thing I think is really interesting, and I'm not sure where I saw this. Actually, I think it was on their website, now that I think about it. So you can go to National Good Day, Good Neighborhood Day, sorry. And they have all kinds of information and ideas and wonderful stuff, and I just found out about this a couple weeks ago, or else we would have definitely been doing some of this stuff. But we still can, or you still can if you want to. But anyway, but here's what they said. They said, and just think about this. Have you noticed how our culture has redefined what a good neighbor is? Have you noticed how our culture has redefined what a good neighbor is? Now, we've talked about this in our book club, right? Right? And those who were there. We talked about this, remember the old days when everybody had a front porch and everybody sat on the front porch. Sue was telling us how her grandpa would sit on the front porch and everybody would walk by, because people were walking then more. And most people had a front porch. And so you would sit there, you maybe wouldn't necessarily have to go in to watch TV because there was no TV. So most people just kind of sat outside, no air conditioning, so it's going to be cooler outside, and see people walk by, and so you stop. Hey, how are you? And you talk. Now, where do people hang out? At their homes? In the living room watching TV. Or if they're outside, where are they? Backyard, on the deck, which is usually fenced in, right? So that those neighbors can't see what you're doing or talk to you. Okay? So see the difference. Bill and I have read a book several times, a couple books by Philip Gulley. He's a pastor and a writer, and he has these short stories, and they're called various titles, but The Front Porch Tales is our favorite one. Bill and I have talked about this for years. And if you're looking for just short stories to just read, and they're all just about the characters, but real people in these small towns, and just, again, kind of what you lose by everyone just kind of hanging out in the back instead of being out front. But when I read that, we had talked about this in our book club, about the differences of now everybody kind of isolating themselves, and we know that that's a huge problem in our world is isolation, a loneliness epidemic, really, people are calling it. But I love that phrase. I had never thought of it, how our culture has redefined what a good neighbor looks like. Because now, what would be a good neighbor to you? Well, maybe for some of us it would be, who's somebody who brings me soup when I'm not feeling well? Or, oh, we're on vacation, will you pick up the mail? Or, gosh, I can't find the dog, is he over there? But I think many people would define a neighborhood now, somebody who stays away from me. Now be realistic about this. Somebody who doesn't bother me. Maybe it's somebody who doesn't play really loud music. Okay, yeah, that would be great. Sure, that they leave you alone in that respect, that they don't, bother you in that respect. But in the other respects of neighborliness, friendliness that we normally would think of, I think that our culture has really renamed that. Yeah, a good neighbor is somebody who just leaves you alone. Maybe we'll wave at you, maybe, when you're leaving. But otherwise, I don't have to go talk to him. I don't have to go try to be nice. I don't have to share. I can just... And again, think of where we are from that. The isolation we have, fewer friendships. Again, this loneliness epidemic. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health crisis. And if you don't believe that, I could tell you stories. I could tell you stories of the people that I talk with, the people that I counsel, the people that I am trying to reach out to alleviate some of that loneliness. It's real. And again, maybe some of you are sitting here internally going, yes, it is, because I feel it every day. So how are ways that we can change this? Again, these are some very small things. Introduce yourself to people. I'm saying neighbors, but it can be to anybody. Introduce yourself. I was at a conference yesterday, and nobody introduced themselves. A lot of it was younger people, but finally it just drove me insane, and finally I felt like I was campaigning. Hi, I'm Jenny. Hi, I'm Jenny. What's your name? Because it drove me crazy. We all are standing in this lobby waiting, for the guy who was coming in, and it was this workshop over at Owens Community College that I was helping run. And I just was like, can't we just talk to each other and just be friendly and make community together? So it's just so interesting how we can let ourselves just get so isolated. Introduce yourselves. Make them cookies, bake cookies for somebody, for one of your neighbors. Yeah, if they need something, maybe they had surgery, of course. But I'm talking just somebody, anybody. They're fine. They can bake their own cookies. They got more money than you. Look at that house they live in. They could go buy cookies. But I'm going to bake them cookies. And if they don't know you, go over and introduce yourself. Or put a note on there, hey, if you ever need your name, anything, just let me know. Or put a thing, hey, I really appreciate how nice your lawn always looks. Like, yeah, I gotta be better about mine. Share a treat, an act of kindness. Hey, if you ever need some help with yard work, I love raking. Not sure who would ever say that, but that would not be on my treat then, right? So think about that. And then, of course, there's all different things of, let's have a block party. Let's do one of the coolest things, and I shared it with some committee, and I don't remember who it was. But one of the coolest things I read, the very first time I heard about this, actually, is that they had what was it called? Something, like an infinity table. I can't remember, that's not what it was called. But it was literally like, okay, let's find a place, and we're all just going to bring folding tables and card tables, and we're just going to and everybody just bring your card table and set it down, and bring a tablecloth, and we're just going to eat together. And I saw pictures of this, and it was from different communities that do this, maybe churches too. And some of them just like in the middle of the street, I don't know where they live, but in the middle of the street, they just put these tables, and everybody just kind of said, oh, what are they doing? Oh, yeah, and somebody came out, run outside, put their thing, and it just looked so cool. 64, probably they would not be thrilled if we would do that, okay? But so just trying to think of small things. I'm going to bake cookies anyway. I'm going to put a dozen on a plate and drop them off. To some of these larger ideas. And it all, again, comes from how can we help people? What is our passion? Again, I'm saying you individually too. I know the opening, we talked about the individuals can't do it, but they can, but always in community. But maybe it's your vision to start with. Who is it that needs help? What is it that we can do? Well, sometimes it can be very, very straightforward. And that's what I want to close with today is a story about neighbors working together. And this is, if you get the UCC devotionals, you probably read this last week, but it's called It All Began with One Lunch. And this is a true story by Matt Laney. So again, this is not me reading this is someone else writing this, Matt. And he says, he uses Matthew 14, that's what caught my eye, 15b to 17. The disciples came to Jesus and said, send the crowds away to buy food for themselves. This should sound familiar by now, right? Jesus said to them, they need not go away. You give them something to eat. They replied, we have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. After an early retirement from Woolworth, anybody remember Woolworth? Irving Price returned to his hometown of East Aurora, New York. With Herman Fisher, Irving Price had founded a company, a toy company, that would become one of America's most beloved brands. What would it be? Fisher Price Toys. The company remains in East Aurora today. Despite their success, Irving and Margaret Price lived modestly. Their backyard adjoined the yard of a struggling family. The mother had died of cancer, leaving 4 children. The father, paralyzed by grief, forbade them from attending the funeral and from speaking her name in the house. Into that pain, the Prices quietly stepped. They invited the oldest child, Dave, over for lunch. Dave began spending more time at their home, finding comfort and stability. During high school summers, Dave worked at the Fisher Price loading dock, earning Irving's respect for his work ethic and intelligence. Mr. Price helped Dave gain admission to Brown University. At graduation, he gave Dave a $1,000 gift, which was a small fortune in 1960. When Dave married his college girlfriend, the Prices offered their Bermuda home for their honeymoon. The Prices dramatically changed the trajectory of my father's life. So the man, this Dave, that was so impacted by these neighbors, was the writer's father, okay? The prices dramatically changed the trajectory of my father's life. Their gifts have multiplied beyond comprehension. I owe my very existence to their generosity and care. One act of kindness, offered without expectation, still ripples through generations and into eternity. And it all began with one